Welcome back to the channel, guys. So in today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to create a basic to-do application using React Native and Redux. For those of you who are new to Redux and want to understand the complete basics of how Redux is used, they can check out my first video of this series on Redux. In this video, we're going to be seeing how we can structure our Redux application. We're also going to be introducing new concepts like action creators, action types, and combined reducers to build this to-do application. It's very similar to the to-do application that's available on the Redux documentation. However, that's built with React.js, and here I'm going to show you how to build it with React Native. So let's see how it's going to work. We have a simple text input in front of us, and here we can enter our first to-do. So let's say create Redux video, and once we save that, we see that it appears at the bottom. Clicking on that, we'll toggle that to be completed. Clicking on that again, we'll remove the strike through to indicate that it's still active and needs to be completed. So as always, this should be fun to build, so let's begin. So I've created a new React Native project with Expo, and I've opened it up in my favorite code editor, Visual Studio Code. We'll start by installing two dependencies. The first one, of course, will be Redux. So all you need to do is run npm install Redux. I already have that installed, so I'm not going to be installing it here. Once you have that, the next thing you need to install is react-redux. This is going to help you connect your React Native app to Redux. Once you have both of these installed, you may need to run npm install again and restart your Expo project, and you should be good to go. So let's first talk about the structure of our application. Here, currently we only have one app.js. Let's create a new folder here, which will hold our Redux application. Let's call that folder source, and inside that we'll create a new file and call that todo-app.js. Here I'm just going to use some boilerplate code. You can get these snippets from the description of this video, and here we're going to call this todo-app. We'll save that out. Coming back to our app.js, let's get rid of this view and pass in our todo-app. We obviously need to import this here at the top. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll say import todo-app from source todo-app. And there everything seems to be working. So as we know, the state of our application is stored in one particular place known as the store in Redux. So let's go ahead and create one folder here called store. Then we need to be able to modify this store. For that, we use something known as actions. So let's create a folder called actions. As we know, actions cannot directly modify the store, so we need something known as the reducers to which the action is sent to in turn modify the store. So let's create a folder here called reducers. So we've got our Redux part sorted out. We have a store, we have a reducer which can modify the store, and then we have actions which are actually sent to the reducer to tell the reducer how to modify the store. Now we need a way of connecting our UI components to our Redux application. There has to be a way in which we can update the store by either clicking a button or doing some action in our application that modifies our store. For that, we need two types of components. There's going to be one type of component which is just a presentational component. These components are also often referred to as dumb components. That component has no idea about Redux, or if Redux exists in the application. Then we have another type of component called containers. These are components that are actually connected to Redux. These components are also referred to as smart components. So let's create our two folders here. The first one is going to be components, and the next one is going to be containers. Now that we have our folder structure sorted out, the very first thing that we need for our Redux application is to create a store. So that we'll do inside our store folder. We'll create a file called index.js, and here we'll import something known as create store from Redux, which will help us create our store. So by convention, we'll call our store as store, and we'll say create store, and the create store method takes the first argument as a reducer. So we'll have only one main reducer. For that, let's call this reducer the root reducer. Also, we want to export this store out of here. So we'll say export default store. So basically we'll try and split up our app to use different reducers for different sections, and then we'll have a root reducer which will combine these reducers together. For now, I'm just going to create an empty function so that we don't get an error with this reducer. So we'll say const root reducer, and we won't do anything inside this. Now let's go ahead and import this store into our to-do app and hook it up with our application. So in our app.js, where we have our to-do app, we'll import the store from source/store. So we have our store, but we need to be able to hook it up to our to-do app. For that, we'll use something known as a provider from react-redux. So here we can pass in the provider, and in the provider we'll say store, and we'll pass in our store. So now our store can be accessed anywhere inside our to-do app, irrespective of how many levels deep it is.